Namaste everybody and welcome to Soulful Sundays with Dr. Mitali, FB Live, 4:30 p.m. And our topic for today is weight loss. And as I put it, there's a lot more to weight loss than just eat less and move more. I'm going to share with you today that one secret that's going to help all of us lose weight. Obesity, weight loss, inch loss, fat loss, no matter whatever we would like to call it, target loss, has always been everyone's coveted topic. No matter how fit and healthy we are, each one of us would love to shape up, look good, look healthy, be fit, and lose a little bit of inches here and there, including me. And currently I'm in a state where I could lose a lot of inches. Yes. And then, in spite of going to a lot of gyms, going to a lot of workouts, doing extraneous exercises, huge amount of diets, ranging from every 2 hourly, like going from Divekars to Dikshits, where you're eating just 2 meals in a day. Sometimes we find that our weight is still yo-yoing and it goes up and down, and that's a journey that we are doing the whole life. Well, today I'm going to connect with you based on some of the stories of my patients in my clinic. Working for last 24 years with obesity, with weight loss, what did I learn and what did I experience? Let me be honest. There were days when if anybody called me up and asked me for do you have homeopathic medicines to lose weight or do you work on weight loss, I used to cringe inside and I used to be very tempted to say, no, I don't. Because I realized that it was not just about medicines. It also required a tremendous amount of commitment from the patient to physical fitness as well as to a good diet regime, which was not going to be under my control. So just giving medicines was not going to work. And I had to counsel my patients saying that there are no quick fix medicines on this earth where you just take medicines or you take some kind of shakes and your weight would reduce. You would have to zip up your mouth and you would have to sweat it out. And therefore, for quite some years, I always kind of avoided taking up obesity and weight loss patients. And still, in spite of working well with them, as the whole concept of holistic healing started, there was something that came up even more stronger. That apart from medicines, apart from diet, nutrition, and exercises, and the ability to eat less, move more, there's something even beyond that. And that was our own belief systems. Somewhere as we grow up, we pick up our own belief systems. And those belief systems could be supportive, and some of those could actually cause a big block in our own weight loss program. I stumbled across some of my own belief systems in my journey of trying to stay up to the scale. Seriously and frankly speaking, it has never been that I could maintain my weight on the scale. The scale just loved to vary from here to there. And it has been a journey trying to stay on the scale all the time. And in spite of doing diets and nutritions, I realized that there was something even deeper. And what was something even deeper was the beliefs that we carry about ourselves. Well, first and the most important thing that I experienced when I was working on my own weight loss journey some time ago was that I had my own belief systems about how my body was going to work. Especially after my cancer, I remember meeting one of my Ayurvedic friends, doctors, and I went to his clinic telling him that this is what has happened and I have to be operated, and now that my uterus and the entire reproductive system is removed, I'm menopausal and I'm scared that I might put on weight, and I can actually see a little bit of inches and weight getting accumulated, and I don't want that. And the first thing that he said was, Mitali, no matter whatever you do, there's no way that you're going to lose any weight for the next 5 years. Your body is going to go through its own biological clock. And for the next 5 years, till the body actually comes to term with the shock of having to go through cancer and finally the sudden menopause that was thrown at you and then stabilize, forget about any weight loss. Believe me, I never thought that these were words that I had taken so deeply inside me and so seriously. I just smiled at him and I said, yeah, could be, but I'm sure I'm a runner, I'm a cyclist, I'm a trekker, and if I am able to keep a good control in my mouth, I should be at least able to stay good on the scale. And every time I tried my best to stay on the scale, I realized it wasn't happening. The inches just kept creeping on. The scale just kept adding on. And I kept wondering, because I had forgotten about this conversation long back, and I kept wondering what's happening in spite of me trying to put in so much of my efforts. And it was when I went into one of our seminars, and like we all trainers also have to go into our practice sessions. That's mandatory when we go for any kind of training work. So when the one who was going to take my session asked me, what would you like to work on, Mitali? So I said, actually, there aren't any problems, but I think there's this weight thing, and it just kind of keeps, I can't maintain it. I can't keep the scale. The scale just keeps shifting and I don't know what it is. And she said, okay, let's work on it and let's see what it is. And it was at that time, it was nearly about 4 or 5 years after I had spoken to my Ayurvedic doctor friend, and we were doing this session, and in the session the belief system came up so strongly that my consciousness had taken this as a gospel truth. It had taken this as a truth that no way is my body going to lose weight. It's all in the hormones, and unless and until my body, the menopause, settles down for the next 5 years, I'm not going to lose weight. It was so deeply ingrained into my consciousness and I wasn't even aware of it. And day in and day out, I was physically trying to do the best that I could do to lose my weight. And that is what I'm going to share with you today, that so many of us come across problems and challenges when it comes to losing our weight, and we try our best to zip up our mouths, to work hard and sweat out, and stay as on track as possible, and still the weighing scale is not our friend. Why does it happen? One of the biggest emotions that is associated with obesity or weight gain is fear and insecurity. Let us take an example. For a minute, think that you're going to courier a beautiful vase. It's a delicate glass vase that you're going to send to your dear friend, which is outside your city. If you're going to do that courier, my dear friends, how are you going to courier it? And by that I mean, how exactly are you going to pack this beautiful vase? Come on, give me a quick shares. How do you think this packing is going to be? If you're going to send a precious, beautiful gift to your dear friend outside your city, and if you're going to send it by courier, what's the efforts that you're going to take to pack this beautiful vase? Yes, exactly. You'll ensure that it's packed properly. It's covered in paper. If possible, you will wrap it in a bubble paper. You'll put it in a nice box. You will surround it with a lot of paper or packing so that the vase doesn't move in the transit, so that the vase remains safe, it remains undamaged, and it reaches in its intact position when it is going to reach your friend, isn't it? So, why did you do that? Why did you ensure that you will wrap it, you will cover it? Exactly, Charita. In order so that the vase should not break, so that the vase, which is delicate, remains intact. And well, That's exactly what really happens when we, as our consciousness, experience this insecurity, experience this vulnerability, this delicateness. At any point in your life, if you feel insecure, if you feel not safe, if you feel afraid and there is fear, for whatever reasons, we'll take the reasons later, the body is going to ensure that it starts accumulating and covering you up with fat. The layers of fat accumulating around you is actually body's and consciousness and the immunity's effort in order to try and keep you safe. For some reason, the consciousness has perceived that you're vulnerable, you're insecure, you're not feeling safe, you're feeling threatened, and the consciousness gives a command to the immunity to start fat accumulation, because that then bulks you up. It then makes you feel stronger, heavier. That's exactly I have seen with so many young boys when they are growing up. Kushal came to the clinic struggling with obesity issues some time ago when he was brought by his parents. Kushal had these challenges in school. He was this very soft, loving, shy boy. And everybody loved to play pranks with him. Everybody loved to pull his leg. Everybody teased him. And some or the other mischief kept happening. Being this soft boy, this timid, kind-hearted, compassionate person, Kushal could never really fight with these boys up. In fact, every time he saw this bunch of boys around, he actually ran to the washroom or to the toilet to ensure that people don't see him so that they stop bullying him. Eventually, feeling so vulnerable, so insecure inside, Kushal started putting on weight. He was actually a good athlete. He was actually good in certain activities. And in spite of that, he landed up putting up more and more weight. And the same thing happened, that he started eating food because food then started to become his comfort eating. Whenever he felt afraid, whenever he felt nervous, he started eating food, and especially food, as we saw last time in our talk, we are what we eat. Food which is sweet tends to take care of our emotions. That is when, apart from ensuring that we gave him a good homeopathic medicines, good bug flower medicines, we worked on Kushal's fears and insecurities. We got in touch with his family, his parents, asked him to talk with his teachers and recognize and make them understand as to what was the deepest pain that Kushal was actually going through. Helping Kushal to gain self-confidence was very important at that time. Helping Kushal to develop abilities by which he could handle these situations or learn not to take them so seriously was what was most important at that time. And as Kushal started feeling more secure, developed friends around him which would be more supporting and caring and which were of his temperament, allowed Kushal to now be more secure. Parents coming in, checking on him, inviting other boys at home so that he had a larger friend circle. These were certain steps that needed to be taken. Now do you realize that obesity is nothing, or weight problems are not just with the body, and it could be a lot to do with the mind, a lot to do with the society, and it requires a much more deeper and more integrated approach if we are working towards obesity. It requires micromanagement as well as macromanagement. Yet another example of fear and insecurity. When Hemant was brought to the clinic, Hemant was struggling with similar weight issues. What was really happening with Hemant was that Hemant's parents were not getting along very well. Day in and day out, they had fights, they had quarrels, they had arguments, they had difference of opinions. Hemant, being the only child, was exposed to this day in and day out. In fact, at times when his mother was very upset she often threatened that she would leave them both and go away. Hemant was hardly a small boy of 12, 10 or 12. This was really painful for him. Imagine a child living with this fear and this insecurity of losing his mother. It could be a very, very painful incident for him. And that fear, that insecurity of losing his mother, of losing his parents, was what was putting on to Hemant's mind. Naturally, he was that insecurity that we just spoke of, that boy who felt so delicate, so vulnerable, so fragile, and for no fault of his, not knowing what was happening, started accumulating fat because it just made the consciousness feel more safe as it bulked up. He started comfort eating because whenever he was alone and these thoughts troubled him, whenever his parents had fights and those thoughts kept coming to his mind, the best escape for him at that time was to quickly gulp down some food or quickly have some couple of chocolates or some candies. And this was how Hemant was dealing with his own fears and insecurities. No amount of workouts, no amount of exercises, no amount of medicines can help you unless you are able to understand these fears and insecurities that this child is going through. And as we talk of children, this happens, it is the same with us adults also. I have seen so many young girls or even women come to me who struggle with weight issues. And the reason could also be that you find escape and safety behind the fat, behind that big, not so beautiful body. And why would somebody want to do this to their own body? So many. I would like to share one of my cases where Priyanka, when we did her therapy session, it was a complete breakthrough moment for her also. When I asked her, when did you learn that it was not safe to look beautiful? And it took it back, it was way back in her childhood. I think this is something that most of us as children have experienced this. Certain amount of physical abuse, certain amount of sexual abuse, certain amount of handling, cuddling, which happens to young girls without their knowing, without their even understanding. And that also through own family members, that also through people who are a part of the family whom they have trusted, in whose presence they have always felt safe. These acts of molestations could land up into a woman or a girl feeling that it's not safe to look beautiful. I've worked with cases of physical abuse and sexual abuse. And these are women who have challenges losing their weight. These are women who are struggling with obesity. They are women who are struggling with their physical appearances. And though they externally keep trying so hard to work on how they look and how they towards looking beautiful and looking good, deep within, somewhere the consciousness has learned, somewhere a belief system has come up that it's not safe to be attractive. It's not safe to be beautiful. It's not safe to be good looking. And that's the time when the body starts accumulating fat. The body starts bulking up. Or it could be that you're weak, you're timid, you're vulnerable, and you couldn't fight your molester. And the body then again starts bulking up with this intention that now I am fierce, I am strong. Don't you mess with me. In the body physique, when we study the different kind of enneagrams, very often we study enneagrams where the type of enneagram which belongs to the anger type are these archetypes which have these huge bulky bodies. And it's not just in men, it's also in women. You typically see in our English movies, whether it's something like Arnold or Sylvester Stallone, they have these huge bulky bodies. They are the sign of strength, of courage, or the ability to stand up and fight. And that's exactly what, and they are shown as these huge angry young men who go around fighting injustice. And that's exactly what happens with the consciousness. The consciousness starts putting up weight, it starts bulking up, it starts building muscles and fats, and the girl kind of starts looking more and more manly. The only reason being that there is safety, there is protection, there is security. Not realizing that deep within, the belief systems are what need to be dealt with. No matter how hard you would try to lose weight and work out, if you are moving around with this belief system that it's not safe to be attractive, it's not safe to be beautiful, it's not safe to look good, I am not safe, your body is going to invariably ensure that it tries to put on weight, forcing you to wear loose gowns and loose clothes, hiding your body. And that is what mostly is seen in women trying to find security, who have gone through these kind of physical abuse, sexual abuse, or molestations right in from their childhood or at any point of time in their life, because it stays in the consciousness, it stays in the psyche, and the body in its effort just tries to ensure that it keeps us safe. We need to understand that these are nothing but just body's efforts to keep us safe. It's not that our body is against us. Our mind and our body's prime responsibility is to ensure that we are safe, that we remain safe. Whenever it feels and perceives that there is fear, there is anxiety, there is worry, there is insecurity, there is vulnerability, the body is going to bulk up, it's going to accumulate fat. It is an metaphor for wanting to be strong, looking strong, though deep within you could be nothing but a scared pussycat and actually running away from the rest of the world. And you could not be even aware that these are the belief systems that I carry, and you would actually be sweating out day in and day out, not realizing that these are the vulnerable aspects that you are carrying inside you. I would like to talk about yet another section of the society and those are the adopted children. Seen, worked with quite some children who are adopted. And again, this feeling of invalidation, the feeling of I am not good enough, is so deeply ingrained in the consciousness of these children from the moment they were abandoned by their birth parents, that very often, apart from lots of other challenges that these children face, obesity, putting on excess amount of weight, could be yet another challenge that these children could face. As I said, the main parent emotion is again going to be insecurity, vulnerability. This main emotion is going to be I am not accepted. I am not good enough for anybody. And even if the child doesn't know that I am adopted, I have seen children who were not even aware for a very long time that they were adopted. They would still have challenges of being accepted into the family who have adopted them. They would have challenges being accepted by not the parents, but maybe the other members of the family, the cousins of the family. And these acceptance challenges could lead them to once again feeling insecure and once again struggling with their weight, struggling with their health. And naturally, it's when it comes to weight, it's again not just about the weight. We know that it is a whole chain, it's a whole vicious cycle and a vicious circle of obesity being a precursor to heart disease, to thyroid problems, to PCOD problems, to menstrual issues, and then a complete cascading of different kind of issues come up. So very often adopted children could come up with these challenges of obesity, and they could require a very sensitive handling where it comes to their weight and their weight management. They could come to you with weight issues. And so time and again, as I keep talking, that every approach needs to be a more holistic approach. You can't work on anything singly. It can't just be that you're working on the diet. It can't just be that you're working on exercise. It has to be that the mind, the body, the emotions are all integrated. And very often when we are working with challenges like this, it is the family, it is the society that also needs to be integrated. I could say this with yet another example where I was working with Yash. Yash had problems with his studies. He had problems with his education. He had difficulties in his schooling. He was not a very brilliant child in the schooling context, though otherwise he was amazing and he did really good. But when it came to textbooks and when it came to classwork, he was not really that good. And as a result, obviously, according to but unfortunately, 90% of us, school marks are our criteria of being good enough or our criteria of being perfect. So this was the challenge that he faced. In school, his teachers kept scolding him for not studying enough, for being lazy, not getting enough marks. When it came to friends, his friends often kept commenting on him that he was not that smart enough and he did not manage to score good enough. When it came to home, his parents were working. So naturally it used to happen that this kind of experience, this kind of questioning would happen with parents when they are on the dining table or on the breakfast. What would happen? The mother or the father, it's a typical thing. It happens with all of us. I think you all must have observed, even we tend to do that. We are on the dining table and it's a family time. Everybody's catching up with one another. It's just a general conversation that is happening. And then, okay, what are you doing? What am I doing? And then we slowly shift to children. And then we start asking the child, how are you? What is happening to your studies? What's happening in school? What are you doing? What is your result? What is your report card? What happened to that class test? How much marks did you get? And invariably, these conversations used to happen on the breakfast table or the dining table. Naturally, Yash had no good news to share with his parents. He was anyway struggling with his academics. Coming home and showing his test reports or his class reports or his test papers was the most dreaded thing for Yash to do. When this used to keep happening on the breakfast or the dinner tables, the only comfort that Yash found was gobbling food. You could see that his speed of eating just increased and he kept stuffing food inside his mouth. Because then it kind of temporarily, that activity allowed him to dissociate from what was happening at the breakfast table and what everybody else was asking. Or in order to avoid that conversation and those kind of questions, because after some time he knew अभी ये conversation धीरे धीरे मेरी तरफ आने वाला है और अब ये मेरा वाइवा शुरू होगा कि क्या चल रहा है, कितना studies हुआ, क्या हुआ. So he used to quickly come to the table. He used to quickly glub everything without chewing properly, without eating properly, finish his food as soon as this conversations used to start coming to him, and then try and run away from the table. Naturally. The result was, the result was Yash just putting on lots and lots of weight. Because again, eating became not just his comfort food. The whole experience kind of started becoming something that was not very pleasant for him. So whenever it came to eating food, it just did not become a very healthy experience. For Yash, eating just meant trying to quickly glub something down your throat, finish it off without relishing food, without enjoying food, without understanding the importance of food. The food just helped to take care of that emotional. It was like that it was a comfort food. It was just trying to put his emotions down, and so that was the relationship that he was having with food. So when you are working with people, when you are working with your clients, it is so important to observe all this. Just looking at the weighing scale के क्या weight है, ये हफ्ते कितना weight हुआ, ये हफ्ते कितना weight हुआ, what is the waistline, what is the chest line, that's not weight loss. That is not treatment of obesity. As someone who is sensitive to treating these problems, you have to look at it in totality. You have to look at the problem. Forget just treating, even as family members. When I'm talking to you all, if you find somebody in your family who's trying hard to lose weight and still not able to lose weight or still putting on weight, these are aspects that need to be looked into, and this is something that needs to be worked on. There could be conscious decisions that would have to be made as a family, that we do not take up these discussions, these sensitive discussions on the food table. There should be a dedicated separate time for these kind of conversations which are not healthy, which are not comfortable discussions. And it's not just about children, it's about all of us. It's about, I'm talking about children, but it's the same. If you're fighting on the dinner table, if you're arguing about money, about finance, about who should do how much work, what kind of work should the husband do, what kind of work the wife should do, or you're bringing your office problems on your food table, you are not eating mindfully. You are just chewing, eating, glupping, stuffing food inside your mouth. And while you're doing that, it's temporarily taking care of the discomfort and the negative emotions that you are talking and thinking about. And then this association is made into our mind that this helps me to calm down. And then this association becomes a repetitive habit. It becomes a repetitive behavior. And unknowingly, you realize that you're maybe popping chocolates or you're popping pills or you're eating some of your comfort foods.